thinking about what you want to say about Louis, and then, but yeah, please continue mingling and talking and sharing your stories. And there's a bunch of pictures at the different tables. So yeah, we'll get started in a few minutes. Thank you.
All right, can everyone hear me back there? Great. Hello, everyone. For some of you that don't know me, I'm Daniel, and my father's oldest and only son. Thank you all for showing up today to celebrate my dad Lewis's life of 75 years. My sister Karina and I are overwhelmed with all the love and support since he unexpectedly passed on September 9th. As you might imagine, this is the last thing I want to be doing. He left us too soon. I'd much rather be golfing with him or watching a Niner game. And my dad wouldn't want us to be sad. He wouldn't want us to be somber. He would want us to smile and share stories or laugh at some of the world's worst dad jokes we've ever told. So instead, we're going to celebrate him today, and I wanted to start by telling you a bit about his life story. On behalf of my sister, her husband Mike, and my dad's beloved grandchildren, Cy, Cole, and Everett. And for those of you who have lost someone, you know how impossible it is to sum up a life in 10 minutes or less. Luis was born on August 24th, 1949, in a small town outside of San Juan, Puerto Rico. He was the fifth of 8 children born to his parents, Juan and Felicia. His 2 brothers passed away decades ago, and he's survived by sisters who are all living back in Puerto Rico. They all have sent their love and wish they could be here today. In 1967, just a few months shy of my dad's 18th birthday, after forging his mom's signature, he enlisted in the United States Army during a family trip to New York City. With the Vietnam War at its peak, he was shipped out there in December 1968 for a year, where he served in the 1st Infantry, known as the Big Red One. His decision to serve his country changed the trajectory of his life. He didn't talk much about his experiences in Vietnam, but I know he lost close friends from boot camp and his platoon. Over the years, I learned more and more about what he saw on the front lines, experiences that would affect him for his entire life. The VA did a lot to take care of him, and he was grateful for that. His final post was at Fort Ord in Monterey, California. He enjoyed the West Coast, especially the weather, without the humidity that he hated, which was strange since he was from a Caribbean island. So he established roots in San Jose and landed a job with the United States Post Office. He then met my mom here in San Jose, and this is where they married in 1978. Going through his paperwork over the last month, we found love letters from my mom and him early on in the relationship. On a card we found from Valentine's Day in 1978, he wrote to her in English, most of the other cards were in Spanish, that he never loved anyone like her and how he hoped to live a life where every day was Valentine's Day. He adored my mother and took great care of her as she battled her lifelong disease until she passed away almost 4 years ago. They spent their early life together out dancing and hanging with friends and my mom's side of the family. Then the best day of my parents' life happened on May 1st, 1980, when I entered the world. I had all their attention for only 2 short years. Karina arrived in March 1982 and our family was complete. We had a great childhood, annual camping trips to Puerto Rico and to my mother's home in Chile. The 4 of us spent a lot of time together and with my aunt, uncles, and all our cousins in Fremont, especially for the holidays. We always ate dinner as a family together. Many jokes were told during that time. We laughed a lot, usually at each other's expense, but it was always in fun. My parents kept their relationship a priority. I remember spending time with babysitters and family members, especially my mom's mom, as a young kid so they can go out dancing. My dad would make breakfast for us on Sundays before the 49ers game. I remember his bacon and eggs, and I would always ask him to fry my eggs like his in his bacon grease. Occasionally, I still make them that way. My dad provided well for our family. He worked hard and long hours for the post office. I remember to this day, as a young kid, watching him get ready for work in the morning, shaving, getting dressed, tying his tie. It seemed like so much effort to my young mind, but it impressed me. One other thing that stood out to me was his work ethic. He didn't call out for work for over 30 years and still didn't miss things that mattered, including a countless doctor and hospital visits for my mom. In fact, he was able to retire a year early with all the sick time he had accrued. He loved his job and developed many long-lasting relationships there. Many of those people are here today. After decades in postal management, he retired in 2006. Retirement was tough in the beginning for him. The kids were gone, and my mom wouldn't allow him to turn on the TV until 3 p.m. His weekends during his career were tied to being a dad, watching my soccer and baseball games, Karina's tennis matches, or dance recitals. I do remember going to his post office softball games and watching him play shortstop and wearing number 17. That became a family number that Karina and I used growing up. He picked up golf later in retirement and enjoyed the game enough to play multiple times a week with a few different men's clubs in San Jose. Some of his fellow golfers are here today. In October 2010, a life-changing and magical thing happened. He became a grandpa. Cy was born on October 6th, bringing with him the luck the Giants needed that postseason to win the first World Series since moving to San Francisco in 1958. Thank you, Cy, and I know he cherished the week you had together this summer. Cole came next in 2013. This kid's curiosity about his grandpa's time in the war recently allowed me to learn a bit more about my dad in Vietnam. Then his granddaughter, Everly, born in 2016. You could find the two of them laughing together in the corner of the couch, squeezing each other's fingertips, giggling at something that only made sense to them. He was Papa Lou to these three kids, a title he wore proudly. He and my mom loved visiting Karina and her family in Kansas. He was so proud of the life she created for herself there and the way she was raising her kids. He loved his son-in-law, Mike. Mike, with that curious Midwestern personality of his, was able to find out more about my dad in 15 years than my sister and I did our entire lives. Mike's got many more stories I'm looking forward to hearing in the future. My dad was a proud veteran, and I had the opportunity to go with him to DC 2 years ago through an organization called Honor Flight. This organization gave veterans like my dad an honorable send-off and welcome home parade, something they never got 50 years ago returning from the war. While in DC, we toured the military museums, memorials, and Arlington Cemetery. Finding the names of my dad's friends that he knew that died in Vietnam on the Vietnam War Memorial Wall was a moving experience with my dad and one I will never forget. I've always been proud of my dad's service, but this made it more real than I could have imagined. In the last year of his life, he decided to try something new and moved to Palm Desert, where he played more golf, started playing pool again, got a new puppy, swam in his pool, and bought an RV. I went down there in February to play some golf with him and watched the 49ers in the Super Bowl. When the Chiefs were about to win the game in overtime, he looked at me with his hand on the remote and said, "I'm changing the channel as soon as they score." I nodded in agreement. He really loved the 49ers and Giants, so much so that my mom loved telling us he had the Giants game on the radio as they drove to dinner on the first date in his Stingray Corvette. The day before he died, I was told he recounted a story I had never heard before. It was 1982, he was watching the 49ers with my mom. They were playing the Cowboys and the catch happened. After the infamous play went down, she ran outside, jumping up and down in excitement, all while being 7 months pregnant with Karina. I can only imagine my dad trying to get her to take it easy, but who could blame her? I mean, they beat the Cowboys. Karina, Mike, the kids, Natalie and I were fortunate enough to all be together with him in Sun River, Oregon, celebrating his 75th birthday just 6 weeks ago. We saw the Beach Boys, played a bunch of board games, had a family ping pong tournament. On his actual birthday, Natalie and I walked 9 holes with him and witnessed him shoot his best 9-hole score ever, finishing just 3 over par. There are no words to express how we all feel, but I have hope that he's now reunited with my mom, looking down on us here and watching all of us live long, happy lives. I imagine him together with my mom, negotiating TV schedules and dancing whenever they want. Thank you.
Great job, Daniel. Way to account for some of those things that we don't know about Louis. Okay, looks like food should be ready, so I want to invite everybody to form a line and get your food. Don't forget drinks in the back too, even though it's Monday. And then as we're getting our food and we're kind of getting back to our seats, like I said, I want to invite people up to tell some stories of what your experiences and moments with Louis were like. Love to hear a lot. Folks from the post office, his golf buddies, and everybody else. So please help yourself. huge part to all of this, and he was kind of that enigma that everybody kind of talked about and thought about. And it really wasn't until I started to get older that Louis and I really had started to create this really, really endearing relationship that meant so much to me. And just, I didn't get to see him, every weekend as I got older. And then as my wife and I moved down to San Diego, it became less and less time. But every time we saw him, it was just amazing. And a couple things that really, stood out to me. The older I got, and maybe it was the older he got, the more smiles, the more laughs, the more jokes, right? And it was just awesome to see, because growing up, I'm gonna be honest, he kind of scared me. He had this big beard, and so, but again, as we grew up, and a lot of it was around sports. So I'm gonna share this one story. 1984, if you guys remember, the Niners lost one game. And I remember we were so excited because Teresa Louise went to the game. And that was the game against Terry Bradshaw. Was it Terry Bradshaw? I think it was Terry Bradshaw and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Niners lost. And I just always said, Louis, you jinxed it. You shouldn't have went to the game. But we won the Super Bowl that year. So I think ultimately it was probably the best thing. So anyways, I love my Uncle Louis. He was just an awesome guy. So I want to invite, again, whoever wants to come and speak, but I'm going to start it off with Louis' grandson, Side. Who wants to come and say a few words?
One of my funniest memories with him was when me and Wella spent about a week with us in my house in Camus, and then I didn't want them to leave, so I decided to drive down with them back to San Francisco, and my mom and dad would come and pick me up a week later. Me, my grandma, and my grandpa, they were all about halfway through. He pulled over, went to a rest stop, and me and Well were watching from the car, and he went into the women's bathroom. When he walked out, he looked pretty confused. I'm glad I could spend 13 years with him, watching the Giants and 49ers, home and derbies, and baseball games. Thanks for coming.
Hello, I'm Edward Areth, and I'm Louise's brother-in-law. We both married sisters, and I've had many years being with Louise, and I'm going to miss him. And we had about 3 years ago, was it, Maria? Excuse me, had a great trip down to Chile. In fact, Louise and I together, we visited the northern part of the country, which is called the Atacama Desert, and saw some of the sites up there that were sweet. In one tour, we knew we were going to go in a high elevation. And Louise found out that, well, we could take this team that help us getting up to around the 4,500 meter elevation, which is pretty high. And we did go up there, and we were able to walk around this small lake. And Louise was panting. It bothered him, but it didn't me. And then later, I think they said, well, it was, what's that main drug they have to use? It was a drug. But we made it. So, I'm going to say congratulations, but I will miss Louise very much. He was a good friend, and we hope to be with his family, both Karina and Daniel. And we love you all, and thank you for coming for this memorial to be with Luis. Bye.
Hi, my name is Maria. Teresa. I know, but I speak really loud. This? Oh, I see. Okay. That goes to show you how often I talk on the microphone. Anyways, one of my oldest memories of Luis, my dear brother-in-law, was that, and as Benji explained, we used to get together every Sunday at our house or their house. But still, I didn't get to see Teresa and the children much more than once a week. That was a long time ago. And when I realized that because of his job, they had to leave early, we just ate. You can't take my sister away from me at 7:30 in the evening just because you have to get up early. Well, I said, I'm sorry, but I have to get up early. I need my beauty sleep. So every week, when they were at our house, I had to say goodbye early. And then we talk on the phone all the time. Not just a little chat, but sometimes hours. In those days, they charged for the minutes. So my husband would kind of complain, hey, you're talking to your sister too long. So what? It's my sister. My other sister's much farther away, and we can't even talk, let alone see her. But Luis, even though at the beginning I did not like that about him, way, he kind of grew on me. He became my best brother-in-law. And especially because of the fact that he loved my sister so much, that meant a lot to me. And I love him now today. And I love all of you. Thank you, God.
Hello. I should run. Anyway, hi. Standing on my tippy toes. My name is Carolyn, and I was a clerk at Little Glen for actually the last 20 years of my career there. And in 1990 was when I met Louis. He was my first boss at Little Glen. At Little Glen, you have many managers come through. But Louis was my first, and he was just a really kind, gentle manager, nice person. And, you know, when you're in the post office, you become one large family. And that's what we are even to today. And I see a lot of, you know, the postal family out here, which I call postal peeps. I do. And, you know, we keep in contact, and Louis was a big part of our monthly breakfast. So every month we would meet at Denny's once a month, and we'd all have breakfast, and, you know, for years and years and years. So, even though, you know, we weren't working anymore, we still keep in touch. And that's the beauty of our postal family. And, so, you know, I was very sad when, you know, it's nice for Louis to make a new change in his life, but really sad to miss him at our monthly breakfasts. But before that, you know, several of us would always bump into him hiking on the trails, because Louis liked to hike. And, you know, so we'd see him on the trails. But about a month before he passed, he was able to come into town. And so a few of us, Jeannie and Carmelina and I, were able to meet with Louis for lunch. And we had a really beautiful lunch at Lazy Dog. And then afterwards, I invited him over to my house because I do energy healing and I wanted to work on his leg that he was having trouble with. So he came over and it was really special because that was the day of the last game of the basketball Olympic when US won the gold. And so my son and I got to watch the last quarter with Louis. So, you know, that was kind of special. Really makes me appreciate the time that we have with everybody. And just to be able to have been with him was just, you know, I feel very grateful for that. And anyway, I just want to share how much he was loved by his social family, and I'm sure everybody else. And but for me, I always know him as Louis Louis.
Hello everyone, my name is Joe Gonzalez. I met Louis in 1968 in Vietnam. We served in the same unit together for a whole year, and I distinctly remember Louis when he came in. I got there first, but then he showed up. And so we served together for a whole year, went through all the trials and tribulations that went along with being in Vietnam. But I remember I left there in 1969 in November. I think he left in December. And the next time I saw him was in the post office. He comes walking in and I saw him and I looked at him and I said, Louis? And he goes, yeah, Joe, what are you doing? I said, well, I work here too. But anyways, it was nice knowing him. Like I said, we spent a year together in Vietnam. And it wasn't the best year of our lives, but you know, it was just one of those things where we didn't ask to go, they sent us. So anyways, thank you so much.
My name is Mike Moraski. Louis is my father-in-law, and so I've known him for about 16 years or so. One of my favorite memories of Louis is probably the second time that I met him. So I flew out from, I was living in Salt Lake and flew out. I had been working up the courage to ask him for his blessing to marry Karina. And it was a rough weekend because I kept delaying, and I would find the spot that I was gonna corner him and ask him. I got to know him a little better the second time that I met him. That weekend, we just bonded over watching football, baseball, a man that I love. I knew I could love the rest of my life. A man had the same things that I loved. And he liked to tease me a lot because I'm from Chicago, and loved to tease me about the Bears and how terrible they were, and the White Sox this year especially. Anyways, going back to this weekend where I was working up the courage to ask for his blessing. We're out with Teresa and Karina. We must have gone to 15 stores already, and we're just exhausted. And they're just still looking at shoes over there in the corner of Nordstrom. And we sit down, we're talking, and I tell him my plans, and he kind of puts me through a little bit of Yeah, the ringer just kind of, okay, all right, well, what's your plan? What's this? What's that? How are you gonna do this? What, you know, and I go through and, you know, at the end he says, you know, you're a good kid, so I'm gonna give you my blessing, but under one circumstance. He said, there's no returns. And I knew from that day, I love this guy. And he always just loved to tease. He was the master of one-liners. Always a good time. You know, every year for the last like 10 years, we make a bet in the beginning of this football season and he say, hey, you want to go to another steak dinner? 49ers, who's going to do better? The 49ers and the Bears, you know? And I've paid a lot of steak dinners out to this man over the years. And I almost kind of think this year, I was like, oh man, what's going on? The Bears are starting to do good. And I feel like once I get up there, I'm going to tell them, hey, you left early on the last one. We got you. I need a steak dinner. And, you know, he's, to be serious though, he is like a second father to me. His example will live on for a lot of generations. He's probably the most honest man that I've ever met. I appreciate his example to me and to my kids. And that will live on for generations and generations. And Louie, I love you. Hope I don't see you for a little bit longer, but when I do, I know there's gonna be a big reunion. And I'm glad that he's able to see his wife again and that they're able to be together. And it's all about family. That's the thing that he taught me. And yeah, I'll leave that with you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Harold. Anyway, me and Louie had about the same careers. You know, I always told him, I said, gee, like my twin brother, you know, we both graduated high school in 1967, both ended up in Vietnam. We took the post office test while we were still in the Army. I wasn't with him when he took his, and it was separate, but basically at the same time. And so we both got hired into the post office that way. But we had a good time getting together and having lunches together and stuff. And I did go on the honor flight with him, the Bay Area honor flight of the Vietnam War veterans and the Korean War veterans to Washington, D.C. And I spent the time with Danny. And we had a great time there, and we just had a ball there. And it's a great trip. Saw the wall, saw all the memorials. And one of the funniest things I can remember is when we were on we went on a cruise about 6 or 7 months later, went on a 10-day Mexican cruise. And so we hung around on the excursions and stuff and had a great time. But one thing I do remember, never played ping pong on a windy day on the 16th floor of the ship. Because he had one hell of a curve. I mean, he put so much English on the ball, he would hit that sucker and it would go, you know, and I'm going, shoo, that's the whole thing, you know. And but we had a great time, and when he did move down to Palm Springs, when he did come back up, we got together and had some lunches and stuff, and but we had a great time. I can remember some great times we did have, and thank you very much.
My name is Charlie, and I've known Louis for a long time. Used to be a church relationship with his wife, because she was a member of the same church, and we would visit there often. And later on, it became golf. And he had a slice to begin with, but he fixed everything. He worked at it. He worked at the golf, and he enjoyed it. He really had a good time. He was great for us. He was as a Vietnam vet, he had the utmost respect of all of us. And he was a leader. He was a pleasant friend, a trusted friend. And we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him a lot.
My name is Ron Glasso, and I knew Louis for about the last 4 or 5 years. I'm a golfer. That's how I got to know him. And joined a group that Charlie had. I joined it as a rookie. You know, I was a young guy, 70 years old. These guys are like 80, 85. And anyways, Louis became a part of that too. And we got to be pretty tight. Well, before that, I was told, if you golf with Louis, be careful. He's very religious, very subdued, very proper. And I wound up in a cart with him one day, and by the end of the 18 holes, and he told me more jokes than I ever thought of. The guy was incredible, funny, open, honest, and just will never, you meet friends all during your life, different parts of your life. And then when you get to be old, like me, you meet a new friend. But Louis and I felt like we were brothers. That's what he made me feel like. He was so open, honest, and funny. I know I'm going to play another round with him someday. I hope it's a long time. But when I do, he better have a ton of jokes there, because I don't want a ton with me.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeff, Louis' nephew, older brother to Benji, just so you know, older. But I have very fond memories and a deep love and appreciation to our uncle Louis. In growing up, you always have people that you look up to. We saw him a lot. Our family lived in the Midwest, other parts of the country for a number of years. But towards the last half of my life, we saw him a lot for holidays. I loved barbecues at his house. Louis was an amazing barbecuer. He took it to a science. There was also a dish that I remember eating years ago in Spain, and he made it. So I'm not a big calamari, squid fan, but I love seafood, except those. And he once made the most delicious paella. It's a memory that I have a lot though. But just a thing about growing up. Sometimes kids are heavy into cool things like guns and airplanes and military and stuff like that. And in our family, we don't have a lot of military people. But I grew up really admiring and reading about military, World War I, World War II, and Vietnam and Korea and all that. And we had found out my great-grandfather was a veteran of the Spanish-American War. And that's really, except for Louis, the only, in our family, the only military we had. I married my wife, her dad was a commander in the Navy, flew on the aircraft carriers. But other than that, our side, we didn't have any except Louis. So I'd ask him these questions, these stories about what was Vietnam like, what's that? And I think he kind of sterilized a little bit for us, you know, me as a teenager, you know. But he'd say these things that are cool, but growing up later on, you realize, oh my gosh, it's terribly dangerous there. He would say, maybe those of you who were here when his unit might remember this, he'd say, we get to know the sounds of the rockets and artillery firing. You'd hear it when they fire, and then that would give you the signal that it gets ingrained into your head. Take cover, get into the foxhole, right? And it's like, and that's how we survived. And I just can't imagine what he went through. But you know, years and years later, just a lot of appreciation for him and his love of his family, and seeing him a lot. You know, if you think about growing up yourself, who did you see a lot? That was, you know, my uncle. And then another perspective, years later, and this is actually just 3 years ago, my daughter, junior high school, and we thought, we're gonna go, myself and my daughter, we're gonna go on an 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. Amazing event, 5 days, 45 stinking 8-year-olds in a bus going through Washington, D.C., all these places, like someone said, you go in the sites, like Luis went. We went to all the memorials, we toured Arlington and U.S. Marines Memorial. Vietnam Memorial is different than anything else. It's an amazing experience. Very, very deep and spiritual. So if you've ever been there before, they have next to it, this little grove, the 3 servicemen. Anyone there seen it before, the 3 servicemen? It's a statue of the 3 grunt servicemen that were in there. And we had this guy, and he was an African-American guy, U.S. veteran, all these companies that do these tours for kids from all over the world, all over the country, come into Washington, D.C. There's buses everywhere, tourists everywhere. It's just blazing, bitterly hot and humid, but we're having an amazing time. But the perspective of this tour guide gave us amazing perspective from an African American and Hispanic. And he explained that in the prior wars, they really used the white people were the servicemen. Those were the frontline people. If you look at World War II, there were no blacks or Hispanics. They were the front line. It was the Marines and the Army, and after World War II, how they integrated it. And if you see this statue, it's really impactful. It's a white man who's a lieutenant and 2 grunts next to him. One is an African American, the other one is Hispanic. I took a picture, I texted it to my siblings. I said, look at this picture. This is Luis. That's him. He was one of the, I guess he said, as a third of the servicemen in Vietnam who lost their lives were Hispanic. And just amazing that he was willing from his childhood, his background to serve. I respect him for that. I love him, and I hope to, as everyone said, that we'll have a great reunion later on. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Keely Hazelton Arith, so I'm their sister and cousins with Karina and Daniel. My memories with Luis actually started. My first memory was even before Daniel and Karina were born. Daniel and Karina were born when we were living in the Midwest. And I remember when they were born, and I felt sad because I didn't get to be there with them. So when we finally moved back to Fremont, it was so fun. They were young, and we got to make up for lost time. But before they were even born, and when Teresa and Luis were married, they were living in their house over in San Jose. I got to go spend a weekend with them, just me. And I have 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers, and no sisters. And I was an only child for a weekend. I got to eat all of the sweet cereal. We always did when we went to their house. We raided their cupboard, their cereal. And I remember Teresa and my mom, the food that we would make was yummy. We made yummy food. The Chilenos have really good food. And I remember Teresa, when they made dinner, and Teresa always made dinner. She was so good with that. I'm not that good. And rice. The rice we can make, they can make. I'm learning how. So yummy. And she made rice, and I was like, oh, this is the best rice ever. And Teresa tells me it's Uncle Ben's rice. I'm like, Uncle Ben's rice? She showed me the package. And Luis tells me it's Uncle Louie's rice. So I always remember spending that time with them and just feeling very special. Not that I didn't feel special in my own home with, a bunch of crazy brothers, but, and then from there, just growing up, and we've talked about it, all the time we spent together, and we've all spent a lot of time together. That's our culture. We think about what do you do, what traditions do you have? We spend time together and we eat food. As our family grew, literally, as my other uncle and his family all came from Chile, and we just grew. We grew too big. We couldn't get together on Christmases anymore. But in my life, as my mother had said, Teresa was her best friend. And she was like my mother, my second mother when I was younger, and as I got older, she became my big sister. And Luis right there with her, and I love them. Beginning of August, we had a big 80th birthday celebration for my mother, and Luis and Daniel were both there. I'm so grateful that we were all there together, because last thing I ever expected was to have my mom call and say that Luis had passed away. In fact, I'm kind of angry at him, because we were talking at the birthday party about going to visit him over in Palm Springs, and we're in Los Angeles now, and we literally have our spring trip planned to Palm Springs, because we've never been there, and it's not very far from us, and we can just drive out there, and now he's not there. That's okay. We will think of him fondly. I just want my family to know I love them. I love them a lot. And someday, we'll be together up there. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for coming. We've got the room for another 20, 40, 20, 30 minutes, I think, so feel free to hang out, mingle. Refreshments are still in the back if you like anything. And come check out the front table, grab a cookie if you like before you head out. Really appreciate all the support. Love everybody for coming, and I know my dad's watching over this and everybody else. Thank you very much.